Yesterday, the 7th of April, marked 28 years since Rwanda's genocide. What was later declared a genocide was initially characterized as a war. More than 800,000 minority Tutsis were murdered by the Hutu extremists in a period of 100 days. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame has accused France of backing those who carried out the massacre, a charge that Paris has denied. For more on this, we're joined tonight by Africa analyst, Advocate Sipho Mantula. Advocate, always good to have you on the program. So, 28 years on, how much has Rwanda healed from the horrors of 1994?
Evening, Temekile, even Jumbo Africa to your viewers. Temekile, looking 28 years, we should link it to our democracy and freedom in this country in 1994. But Rwanda, it was tough if you look between April and July. And I think what they have done, they have went through what they called reconciliation path. They are always having what we call collective memory. Hence, they are always remembering 6 April and 7 April until 7 July as a memory. Hence, they've even built a museum in Kigali where they are always reflecting on what is going on. But look at their economy, look at their issues around cleanness, around Kigali and around surrounding villages. Even if others are saying Kagame is still a very strict leader, but if you look at the history of Rwanda, it's a country that went through a lot after 1994. Despite Tembekile, there is a book I will talk about later about this, because I still vividly remember how the United Nations Security Council was sitting in many meetings when this genocide was even going on. So it shows that we talk of Africa's genocide, but we have many genocides that have happened in this continent. But Rwanda remains one of those. Hence, it is still like our Shavilanga massacre. It's still like our June 16, where they always use the word never again. And
you drew the parallel right at the beginning between what was going on in Rwanda in 1994 and what was essentially a new dawn for South Africa, first democratic elections. There was talk of the Rainbow Nation. 28 years on, the Rainbow Nation dream is fading in South Africa. What lessons can this country draw from Rwanda as far as the sustainability and keeping alive the 1994 project?
You know, Tabekila, I will use what Rwanda did yesterday, today, when they were saying, remember, renew, and unite. If in this country we don't have social cohesion, we don't, we don't have unity amongst ourselves, we don't understand where we come from, if we don't even want to, not to have a collective memory. And I think in this country, what we have again is the issue of resentment, failure to recognize the past, because everybody wants to dominate the narrative of what has happened. Enough issues around racial inequalities that have been going on. But what we can learn from Rwanda, I will say to you, environmental cleanness. I think you'll recall Tembeki, the president, when he was in Northwest Province, he spoke about the cleanness of Rwanda, but I was shocked because when President came into power, he said in 2018, every first week of every month, we must have a cleaning campaign in our neighborhoods. But if you look at Rwanda, the lessons learned, beyond creating your apartheid museum that we have here, is to move beyond that and have those brutal, honest conversations. And it is not only South Africa, again, Temekila, will go to our neighbor, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had their own massacre in 1982 to 1987. There are lessons to learn from the Rwanda genocide, despite that some of the genocidees are still in exile, others are still running away. And hence, when you were talking the issue of Kagame raising that Paris and France is still denying their role in the Rwanda genocide. Hence, I will say to you and to your viewers, there is a book called A People Betrayed, the role of the West in the Rwanda genocide. Interestingly, apartheid South Africa was part of that genocide. It was still supplying weapons to those all fighting forces. So if you think of Rwanda genocide, let's not immune ourselves. The lessons we learned is never support parties when they are in a conflict.
Just on those comments made by President Paul Kagame, criticizing countries that are still essentially home to some of the people accused of the genocide atrocities of 1994 in Rwanda. I think about 1,000 at least are documented to be in other countries, either on the continent or further afield. Do you think those people will ever be brought to justice?
No, definitely. Remember, Paul Kagame even set up a unit where he calls it the genocide a tracking unit, meaning they're tracking them, but for justice, remember, and I mean, Tembekile, I still remember again vivid. We used to have those meetings when I was still coming to international law at the EU Peace and Security Council, when they will talk about Gajaja courts, that in Rwanda they had what they called the People's Court of Gajaja, where they will have courts under the trees. They were even emulating our own TRC processes. Despite that ours was a piecemeal fashion, it was hit and run. We still did not deal with the issues that affected the survivors and victims. But when you look at Kagame's role, like I was saying to you, that book, the role of the West in the Rwanda genocide was documented. And what I said to you earlier, the failure of the United Nations Security Council to have aided and assisted the people of Rwanda. Hence you saw others went even of doing the movies of Hotel Rwanda just to show the blue helmet leaving Kigali. So that's how, if we have to maybe contextualize it, it is the matter of, yes, there must be justice, there must be remembrance, there must be reconciliation. And that's how I think these are the lessons we can learn.
How legitimate then are fears by some of these countries, either expressed officially or not, as around the potential extradition of many of these suspects, that they would not get, for example, a free trial in Rwanda? The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, has been described in the past as somewhat of a hardline leader who may not necessarily do things by the book always, even though I know yesterday at the commemoration of the genocide he said that justice is top of mind in Rwanda.
No, definitely, and I think you are very spot on. He was saying actually the small countries have rule of law, when the big countries and the superpowers have minimal rule of law. And I fully agree with you. But you know, Tembekile, yes, your extradition bottleneck or limitations of extraditing someone to another country with a fear that he might not get a fair trial, it can be justified. But in these instances, what I've been picking up, Rwanda has been at the UN, has been engaged in that. Both the media, academia has been very shallow on their interpretation and paralysis of analyzing the Rwanda genocide. And hence, the issues of the rule of law, they are very critical, but the AU has been supportive of this Rwanda genocide commemoration day. And one will assume that even if you can put before the African Court of Human and People's Rights in Tanzania, there might be some justice there, but I think it is the issue of are those countries willing to extradite those people so that Rwanda can have a closed chapter on what has happened. It's the same similar situation we have of Blaise Compaoré in exile in Ivory Coast and given nationality. It would be difficult to take him back to Ouagadougou because of the situation and the tensions of these cases, the nature of the cases, the memory of 28 years, almost 1 million people who were massacred within a period of 100 days.
Do you think then, Advocate Mantula, that a trial by a neutral, and I use the word neutral court with caution here, maybe perhaps a trial at The Hague or the International Court of Justice, would be more palatable for the countries that don't want to send some of these suspects back to Rwanda itself?
Definitely, but let me take your viewers back, and I think they will still remember. You know, Resolution 955 of the UN established what we call the International Tribunal on Rwanda. One of our own, Mayor Yasmin Suka, who's currently working on the question of the South Sudan, was part of that Rwanda tribunal. So you might find, why are the recommendations, the resolution that came out of that Rwanda session, forum that was established by the UN to go and deal with those genocides. And that's where I will say to you, to create another court, it is the same like you want to create what you are saying, impartial court, whether ICC or ICJ, but you have an African human rights court system which you must trust. I fully agree with you. Kagame, you cannot trust. It's more like a million is good on this day. When you wake up, is another person. So what is critical is that you need your trust on African human rights system. And like I said, what Resolution 955 created by the Rwanda tribunal, we should follow the spirit and the text of that tribunal.
Advocate Sipho Mantula, good to have your time as always. Thank you.